Thank you very much, Ejaz. I have to say, despite your comments, it's a huge pleasure to be here, and I'd like to congratulate you. It really is a huge pleasure to be here. It really is. It's great to be here. We had a very long and successful partnership with BYLC, and it's great that you've now formed the Global Youth Climate Summit to build on that work. I thought you were going to say, when you said it's not easy being a British High Commissioner in 2020, you were going to refer to the fact we've just lost another Prime Minister. Since we started this evening, Liz Truss has resigned, and we are told that there will be a very compressed leadership conference, which will give us a new Prime Minister in about a week's time. And already the bookies are taking odds on who that person might be. So I have to say I'm speaking with slightly less confidence than I normally would about the British government's position. But I think you ask some really good questions. I sort of feel I'm here not just as the British High Commissioner, but also as the representative of the global North. So I'm therefore, for the second time this evening, I'm the bad guy, which I think is a good position to be in because it makes you think. And I think what I would say is that there are two facts in this debate. The first was set out very eloquently by Sir David King, that there is a very, very serious problem. And, you know, if you're in Bangladesh, you've seen flooding at an odd time of year, a very odd monsoon. We've seen terrible floods in Pakistan. And in the UK this year, we had the first time in our history when the temperature was over 40 degrees in the summer, which is very uncomfortable anywhere, and particularly in London where there's no air conditioning. So we cannot deny that right across the world, there's absolutely clear evidence of the problem. And the second fact is you're absolutely right that the North, starting with the UK, created this problem. So it's very interesting. The UK was the sort of Saudi Arabia of coal throughout the Industrial Revolution. And we were mining 300 million tons of coal a year for decades, for centuries. And that was what our early prosperity was built on. So we cannot deny that we have a responsibility. But I think when I'm sort of thinking about what do we do now, Lenin asked the question, what is to be done, which I think is the right question. And I think your question about what is the practical things that we can do is absolutely the right one. And there was a handy, Boris Johnson, for all his possible disadvantages as a prime minister, did come up with a very handy phrase to sum up what we were trying to do at Glasgow, which I think remains relevant, where he said it's about coal, cash, cars and trees. And I think what I would say is that actually is right. And I think for young people, there's something in that for all of them. And if I go through them not in that order, on coal, I mean, it is remarkable how much progress has been made on renewable energy in a very short time. And when you look at the UK is now fringed all the way around the coast. We're lucky we have a lot of wind. And on a windy day between, I think I'm right in saying 30+% of UK energy now comes from renewable, from offshore wind. And the price of renewables all around the world is going down. There's now a very strong economic case for investing in renewables. Solar is down 98% or something over 3 decades. It is extraordinary. So I think the combination of sort of technology really moving quickly and the investment sort of prospects catching up, the financial prospect catching up, means that I think on energy, there is some scope for optimism. It's certainly there isn't any room for complacency, but I think there is some room for optimism. And that's before you start looking at more radical solutions like small nuclear power stations or nuclear fusion or those things. So I think we certainly haven't solved it, but I think there is room for optimism on the energy side. Cars is relatively straightforward. I mean, electric vehicles are already making a lot of progress. And we in the UK have agreed that we will phase out all internal combustion engines by 2035. Now, you could argue we should be more ambitious than that, but we do at least have a target and we're working on it. And I think, you know, increasingly internal combustion engines will be seen the way that smoking is now seen by a lot of people, which is that it's a completely odd and unacceptable thing, which it's very odd now that anyone thought it could go on for as long as it did. On trees, I think there has been a real change in the way that people think about nature. I think there is a recognition of the fragility of the planet. And I have to say, I think your classmate at St Andrews, Prince William, who was very sorry he couldn't join us, things obviously have changed for him in recent weeks since we discussed the possibility of his being here. He's very sorry that he couldn't come. Obviously, he's moved from being Prince William to being Prince of Wales with the changes that have happened in the royal family. But if you look at the role that his father, you know, Sir David Attenborough, I mean, there's a whole different change, I think, in the way that people look at the planet and its resources. And of course, it doesn't mean the problem's solved, but I think it's a complete change in the way that people think. You know, we used to think it was a world of inexhaustible resources. And now we recognize it's a fragile planet with resources that are absolutely finite, and we need to change the way we think about it. And I think, you know, that again is something that young people, my own children, are absolutely passionate about this. And I think it's a real change. They're all vegetarians, which I think is a wonderful thing that you can actually do if you're trying to act local, think global, as the environmentalists used to say. Then I think being a vegetarian, which I'm not quite, but heading that way, is something that you can really do just on a personal level to make a difference. So I think on trees, there is a real recognition of and change. And finally on cash, and this comes to Sally Mills, absolutely. Sally Mill and I debate this quite often because we gave him an OBE. He's now an officer of the Order of the British Empire because he puts his case for L&D so eloquently. But I think he is absolutely right to put that challenge out there. And again, I mean, I think Sir David King is right that, again, we haven't reached the target that we set. I mean, I think it's very interesting to have him saying there was $100 billion commitment, we've got to 21. Well, yes, that's not good enough. But I think, again, there is a recognition of this shared planet and this responsibility on the part of the global north. And even though I obviously can't speak with quite the authority I would have wished, because we are between governments at the moment, thanks to the events of today, I think in the UK, we are really solidly committed to our 11.5 billion contribution over 5 years, pounds that is, to the global climate targets. And when I look at what we're doing here in Bangladesh, actually climate is one of the big strands for us of our whole development and political partnership with Bangladesh. And we're doing adaptation, nature-based solutions, renewable energy, regional solutions, and solid waste management, which, as was mentioned, is a huge challenge here in Bangladesh. So we are very committed to doing what we need to do to step up to the global challenge on climate finance. And we have a practical program, which we announced at COP26 last year, and we will be taking forward. We are starting to take forward already, but we'll be rolling out at scale over the next 5 years. So again, you know, we're not being complacent. We haven't solved the problem, but we are, we think, doing, you know, taking our responsibilities in this space very seriously. So I think you're right to challenge us. You're right to challenge bureaucrats. You're right to challenge the West, the North. You're right to challenge governments. But what I would say is that, speaking for the British government and speaking for me personally in the 3.5 years I've spent here as High Commissioner, I think this is a crucial agenda. We all recognize that. We aren't perfect, but we are doing a lot more than we have at any other time in my, not just my career, but my whole adult life. And young people are key to that. So it's great to see so many passionate, empowered young people here in the room, but also, I know, joining online from elsewhere. So thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.